Hey everyone, I hope you guys had a great weekend. This is going to be our last video that we're going to live stream together. So I know you guys still have packets out that are going to get turned back in. If you need any help with those, feel free to reach out to me through Google Hangouts or through email. I will still be available to help you. So for today, I just want to go over looking at equivalent fractions. So we have quite a few problems. I'm going to show you with a multiplication chart how we can decide how to make fractions equivalent. So on our first one, we have 2 over, we need to figure out the number equals 8 over 20. So we're going to look at our numerator, which if you remember is our top number. And our top number went from 2 to 8. So using a multiplication chart, you can go to the 2 times table and you can find 8 and see that that was multiplied by 4. So back over here, our first fraction was multiplied times 4. So that means that this number over here also has to be multiplied times 4 to equal 20. So we know we're multiplying times 4, so we're going to use our multiplication chart to find 20 in the 4 times table. It's right here. And we're going to go up and we're going to see that that number is 5. So our answer down here in this box is 5. Because 2 times 4 equals 8, 5 times 4 equals 20. Over here in our next one, we're going to solve it a little differently because we need to figure out the number that we're going to multiply it by so we don't have to backtrack. So we start with 5 in our numerator, and our numerator went up to 15. So we're going to go to our 5 times table, and we're going to find 15 right here and go up, and 5 times 3 is 15. So we know that this fraction has been multiplied times 3 to get 15. So we're going to multiply 7 times 3 to get this number. So we're going to go to our 7 times table, and we're going to go over to 7 times 3, which is 21. So our denominator over here is going to be 21. On this one, we don't know our numerator, so we're going to look at our denominators. Our first denominator is 8, and we have to figure out what we multiply 8 by to get 32. So back at our multiplication chart, down to our 8 times table, we go over, we find 32, and we see that 8 times 4 is 32. So this fraction has been multiplied times 4. Now we have to figure out our starting point, so we're going to use our 4 times table and find 4. So in our 4 times table, our 4 is right here. 4 times 1 is 4. So 1 over 8 is what our fraction is going to be. 8 times 4 is 32. 1 times 4 is 4. Our next fraction, we have our numerators. We have 4 and we have 12. So we're going to use our 4 times table to see what we need to multiply it by to get to 12. So over here in our 4 times table, we find 12, and we go up and we see that 4 times 3 is 12. So we multiplied 4 times 3 to get 12. So now we're going to multiply 12 times 3. So we go to our 12 times table and we multiply it by 1, 2, 3, and that's going to be 36. Down here in our next one, we have our denominators filled in. Our first denominator is 4, and our second one is 8. So we start with our 4 times table and figure out what we need to multiply 4 by to get to 8. So over here, we have 4. We found 8, and 4 times 2 is 8. So this fraction has been multiplied by 2. Okay, so now we need to figure out what number times 2 equals 2. So in our 2 times table, 2 is right here. We see that 2 times 1. So our numerator for our first fraction is going to be 1. On this one, we start with 1 and we're going up to 2. So we're going to look at our 1 times table to see 1 times what equals 2, and 1 times 2 equals 2. So we multiplied our fractions by 2. So we're going to look at our 2 times table to find 18. In our 2 times table, 18's over here, and we see that 2 times 9 is 18. So our denominator is going to be 9. One times 2 is 2. 9 times 2 is 18. Our next problem, we have 3 and 12. So we're going to look at our 3 times table to find 12. And our 3 times table, 12 is right here. So 3 times 4 is 12. Now we're going to go to our 10 times table and see what 10 times 4 is. So down in our 10 times table, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. 10 times 4 is 40. So our denominator is going to be 40. Next one, we have 8, and we need to get up to 32. So in our 8 times table, 32 is right here. So if we go up, 8 times 4 is 32. Okay, we multiplied our top times 4, so we're going to multiply our bottom times 4. So we're going to find 10 times 4. So in our 10 times table, 1, 2, 3, 4, 10 times 4 is 40. Okay, down here, our numerator, we have 1 and 4. So we need to figure out 1 times what equals 4. So 1 times table, we find 4, and 1 times 4 equals 4. Okay, now we're going to use our 4 times table to find 8. So in our 4 times table, here's 8, and 4 times 2 is 8. 1 times 4 is 4. 2 times 4 is 8. Down here in our next one, we're going to use our 4 times table to find 16. So here's our 4 times table. We're going to go over to 16. We see that 4 times 4 is 16. Okay, now we're going to use our 4 times table again to find 24, so we can figure out our first denominator. So back in our 4 times table, we're going to go over and find 24. So right here, we see that 4 times 6 is 24. So our denominator is going to be 6. Next one, we have our denominators. We have 10 and 40. So we're going to use our 10 times table to find 40. So in our 10 times table, here's 40. And if we go up, 10 times 4 is 40. So we're going to use our 4 times table again, and now we're going to find 20. 4 times table, right here's 20. We're going to go up and we see that 4 times 5 is 20. So we have 5 times 4 equals 20, and 10 times 4 equals 40. On our next one, we're going to use our 5 times table to find 20. So in our 5 times table, 20 is right here, and 5 times 4 is 20. Okay, we multiplied our top times 4 to get 20. Now we're going to multiply our bottom times 4 to get this number. So we're starting with 6, and we're going to multiply it by 4. So we go to our 6 times table, and we're going to multiply it times 4. So our answer is going to be 24. Okay, our next one, we have our denominators filled in. So we're going to start with 4, and we need to see 4 times what equals 8. So at our 4 times table, 8 is right here. If we go up, we see 4 times 2 is 8. Okay, so we multiplied 4 times 2 to get 8. So now we're going to multiply 1 times 2. So in our 1 times table, 1 times 2 is 2. So our numerator is going to be 2. Our next one, we have 5 and 15. So we're going to use our 5 times table to see what times 5 equals 15. So in our 5 times table, 15 is right here. If we go up, we see 5 times 3 is 15. Okay, so So we multiplied 5 times 3 to get 15. So down here we're going to multiply 8 times 3. So back on our multiplication chart, when we go to our 8 times table, we go 1, 2, 3, and 8 times 3 is 24. So our second denominator is going to be 24. On our next one, we have our denominators filled in. So we're going to use our 7 times table to see 7 times what will equal 21. So on our multiplication chart, our 7 times table is right here. Here is 21, and we can see that 7 times 3 is 21. So if we're multiplying our bottom times 3, we're going to multiply our top times 3. So 1 times 3 is our 1 times table, and we see that 1 times 3 is 3. Our next one, we also have our denominators. So we're going to use our 9 times table to find 27. So our 9 times table is right here. 27 is right here. So if we go up, we see 9 times 3 is 27. So we're going to use our 3 times table to backtrack from 12. We're going to see 3 times what equals 12. So on our 3 times table, we go over and we find 12. We see that 3 times 4 is 12. So we have 9 times 3 is 27, and 4 times 3 is 12. On our next one, we have our denominators filled in. We're going to start with 3 and see 3 times what is 9. So over here in our 3 times table, we're going to find 9 right here. And we see that 3 times 3 is 9. Okay, so now we're going to use our 3 times table to see 3 times what is 3. So 3 times table, and here's 3, so 3 times 1 is 3. So 3 times 3 is 9, and 1 times 3 is 3. On our next fractions, we have our numerators filled in. So we're going to use our 3 times table to find 12. So on our 3 times table, 12 is right here, and we see that that is multiplied by 4. Okay, if we're going to multiply our top times 4, we're also going to multiply our bottom. So we have to find 7 times 4 on our multiplication chart to get our second denominator. So in our 7 times table, we see 7 times 1, 2, 3, and 4 is 28. So our second denominator is going to be 28. On this one, we have our numerators filled in. We start with 1, and we need to see 1 times what is 5. So on our 1 times table, we go over and we find 5, and we see 1 times 5 is 5. So this fraction has been multiplied by 5. Okay, so now we need to multiply our denominator times 5 to get our second denominator. So we're going to use our multiplication chart to find out what 3 times 5 is. 3 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is 15. So our second denominator is going to be 15. Over here, we start with 1, and we need to see 1 times what gives us 4. So in our 1 times table, we find 4. We see that 1 times 4 is 4. Okay, we have our second denominator, so we're going to need to divide. So we're going to use our 4 times table to find 24. So in our 4 times table, 24 is right here, and we see that 4 times 6 is 24. So our first denominator is going to be 6. 1 times 4 is 4. 6 times 4 is 24. Okay. On this one, we have our denominators. So we're going to start with our 12 times table, and we need to find 60. So all the way down here, our 12 times table, here is 60. So if we go up, 12 times 5 is 60. So this fraction has been multiplied times 5. Okay, so for our numerator, we're going to start at 7, and we need to figure out 7 times 5 to figure out our second numerator. So in our 7 times table, we have 7 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 7 times 5 is 35. So our answer is 35. Alright, here we have our numerators. So we have 1, and we need to see 1 times what will give us 2. So in our 1 times table, right here is 2, and we can see 1 times 2 is 2. Okay, so we multiplied our top times 2, now we're going to multiply the bottom times 2. So we're going to go to our multiplication chart and see what 5 times 2 equals. So in our 5 times table, we have 5 times 1 and 5 times 2. 5 times 2 is 10. So our answer over here is 10. This one, we're going to start with 2, and we need to see 2 times what is 8. So on our multiplication chart, we go to our 2 times table, we find 8. We see 2 times 4 is 8. Okay, so we multiplied our top times 4 to get 8. So we're going to multiply our bottom number, 9 times 4. So back on our multiplication chart and our 9 times table, we have 9 times 1, 2, 3, and 4. 9 times 4 is 36. So our second denominator is 36. Okay, and on our last one, we're going to use our 2 times table to see 2 times what is 10. So 2 times table, right here is 10. And we see 2 times 5 is 10. So we multiplied our top times 5, so now we're going to multiply our bottom times 5. So we're going to use our multiplication chart to see what 4 times 5 equals. In our 4 times table, we have 4 times 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 4 times 5 is 20. So our second denominator is going to be 20. Alright, that is all the time we have today. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week, a great summer, Please feel free to reach out to me if you need me. And stay safe.